Good morning, guys. It's Robbie K coming at you with another Robbie K's movie reviews. Last night I had the privilege of essentially seeing the next, I guess you would say, horror movie in the Silver Screen Saga. And this time coming from Mr. Peele himself, who gave us Get Out. Tonight's movie is all about a new concept of us. And by new, I mean something we usually don't see. The concept of doppelgangers. At least that's what the trailer is promising. Hi, welcome to Robbie K's Reviews, and again, we're going to go over kind of how we do things, and then get to it. If you're new to the channel, essentially we do a quick trailer. We talk about whether or not what was kind of expected into it. Then I give you a quick and dirty review, and if you like a little more detail, stick around because that's when I'll do my likes and dislikes. Anyway, let's kind of get into the moment of Us. If you haven't seen Us, essentially it's from the guy who wrote Get Out. And if you like that movie, it's supposedly in a similar universe or down the similar path. But when you look at the trailer, it's about a family who's going on vacation who meets essentially their darker halves. And the ensuing chaos to come is sure to be an entertaining ride and horror, slasher, thriller, suspense kind of aspects. But of course, there must be something deeper and distinct about it because of the fact that we don't see much in the trailers, but from the glimpses, there's certainly to be a dark adventure at hand. So the question is whether or not that dark adventure delivered. Well, that's where I'm coming in. In terms of the summary of the quick version, yeah, it actually does. Peele knows how to write more unique twists and versions, telling a story rather than just relying on kind of the scare tactics and ventures like that. I myself absolutely was enjoying the darker side of things, and the fact that he gradually fleshes out the story, dropping occasional hints, but really doing the part to try to extend out and tell you what in the world's going on. When you finally do get to where these dark versions come from, it's got enough details to at least give you an explanation without going too deep into it that it becomes cheesy and hokey. So there's just enough line there for you to kind of help you out with that. Now, in regards to anything else that comes off with it, it's not as scary as you might be thinking, but it's creepy. It has this effect of leaving you essentially feeling like something is off, which I think is what a good horror movie is able to do. And even though it is a bit graphic, it's also not the worst graphic thing that I've seen as well. So, it's kind of a mixture here and there. And it's got a very, again, good story to balance all this stuff. The comedy, like Peele did in Get Out, is also there. So if you're a fan of that kind of balance, this movie has it for you, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, in regards to, anything else about it, again, this is one of those movies I got to be careful how much I say, because I could easily ruin something. So I'm going to kind of leave it off with that the movie's only other things are, despite having a good story, there are some predictable elements to it. Despite the fun balance to it, I think that there was a couple of more things they could have done. But overall, though, the movie is a solid addition into the horror universe, and again tells that important story. My scores are definitely in its category, around probably an 8 is probably where I'd put the category. Movie overall, probably a 7, 7.5. For more details on it, stick around for the second part, but otherwise, please like, subscribe, and share, and as always, I appreciate it. Now, in terms of those who like a little more discussion, here's what we got. For the likes, because I always like to start out on the positive foot, Us starts out with, again, the acting. I love Lupita Nyong'o. I think she knows how to play a wide variety of roles, and she just sells it for me in the various components. I think everything the director made her do, she was able to accomplish, and much like I've seen her in half of her other roles, whether it be the digitalized version of an alien in Star Wars, to the amazing spy in Black Panther, she just knows how to play a lot of variety of roles. And this complex component, I think she balanced very well. Now, in regards to her other supporting cast, I'm not going to go into everybody because I think that's going to give away too much, and I don't want to waste too much time. But the other ones do great. I think the kids have the element that they were going for in terms of the quirks that their characters have. I think the husband was probably the funniest component of it, so he was the comedic relief. And I think, like the good parts of a Tyler Perry movie, they're timed very well and perfectly, so the comedy is actually not too overdone for the most part. In regards to other things that I thought, as I said, and I agree with several of my friends to whom I've read posts on, it's creepy. It is one of those movies that manages to get under your skin without tormenting you and get under your skin without being too jump scare and graphic. It's just got this slight uneasy edge, and I think that's what adds to the suspense and thrills of it, which is kind of what the selling point of this movie is. In regards to, again, sort of the other components of it, well, it's a fine movie in regards to also the, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess in regards to kind of the atmosphere of the movie and that suspense I was telling you about. The movie really kind of keeps tagging along, and part of that's going to be one of my final likes, which is my favorite like of all. But it works so well to kind of integrate a lot of the components, and that suspense just keeps you engrossed into the movie. How deep is it going to go? What's going to happen? Where is this coming from? And of course the underlying source of what exactly is the source of all this material. In regards to kind of some of the things that I appreciate, sort of the makeup and the setting, I can say that if you've seen the trailer, you've noticed some slight differences, and that's very good attention to detail. And I think that the departments that were involved with this in terms of makeup, settings, prosthetics, and costumes, I think they did a bang-up job kind of integrating and making this shadowy world evil twin component that the trailers do. They sold it in the movie and did a fantastic job of paying attention to anatomical differences enough to bring this out. I absolutely really appreciate that, and that adds to the element for me. The pacing is actually okay. There are times where it's really good, there are times not so much. It's going to kind of be a like and a dislike for me, but fair to say that overall the pacing of the movie works, given that this isn't the fastest movie like normal horrors are, but yet it still works very well. And I gotta give them a little bit of balance, or a little bit of props, for some of the balance that they did with sort of the more aggressive versions of this. And what I mean by that is sort of the violence component of it. Enough in there to be a serious component, but nothing like what we've seen in televisions and shows where somebody just went nuts and started hacking away. I think that felt very good there, and I'm more than happy with the results. Yet the biggest thing that I love is I love the storytelling. A horror movie that doesn't have a story allowing it to kind of lay out is sometimes a bit cheesier. And while those movies are fun to just go in and get scares and get laughs, I think it's more important for the quality ones, if you're going to put them out as much, is to really tell a good story that sort of defies the atypical run-of-the-mill horror. And Peele knows how to do that. His story in this one is very interesting. It works, but at the same time, it doesn't go overboard and trying to get ahead of itself and give you every detail. It's one of those that allows you to piece enough together, but gives you enough story to be able to successfully do that. And again, never losing the horror element, or at least the theme of the movie, to keep the suspense going. I felt that was probably the selling component of it, and I for sure loved seeing his imagination come to life and the dark twists that he brought into it. That story right there is what, again, is going to be a key factor, because a lot of it is balanced on it. And yeah, you got to pay attention a little bit, but you're able to glimpse and get some ideas, and that to me just works very, very well. So overall, that's kind of my likes. Now, in terms of dislikes, I do have a few things that did not necessarily work for me. I don't think they're going to bother, most of them aren't going to bother as many people, but this is just stuff that I was not a fan of that kind of went into a factor. Number one is that even though it is very, very minor, which is why I'm not taking off too much in terms of the overall score, there is one of my cardinal rules broken, and I can't tell you because it may end up giving away a little too much. It's a very small part, but I don't like even hearing some of this stuff, so I'm going to have to let it go and not say much about it. But there's a cardinal rule that if you've heard some of my movies in the past when I haven't spoiled, if it wasn't a spoiler, you know what one of my cardinal rules is. Anyway, In regards to it, the opening scene is about 5 minutes of a very weird opening and very drawn out. It's a simplistic shot that doesn't really add much to it other than some cuteness factor to it, and it was just kind of a pointless introduction, past, of course, the preface that they were giving it. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. Again, it's another small dislike, but just something that was a little pointless to me. In terms of the other factors here that I think are going to be a little more justifiable. First of all, I didn't get scared as much. Again, I agree with some of my friends. I don't scare easily with how many of these I've seen. And while the uneasy factor worked, for those really looking to be jumping out of their seats, scared and stuff like that, like it was maybe promising, it doesn't quite do that to me. If that's what you're looking for, this is more of a warning rather than a true dislike, but it didn't make me jump, and it wasn't the scariest thing that kept me on the edge of my seat. The story is, because it's intriguing, but not the, I guess, dark atmosphere of it. But hey, it's still not bad. In regards to some of my other dislikes, there are times where the pacing is very slow. My friend Mary, Mary is kind of my sidekick on this. She had asked once during the movie how long was the movie. It had only been about an hour. So there are parts that are very long and drawn out, sometimes to set up for something. Other times it feels like there were some unnecessary details and attention that really didn't, maybe really wasn't needed. Again, I can't find many of these things, but the pacing does feel a little uneven and off, in my opinion. Something else is that, I guess, as I said earlier, I may have wanted a little more details into where the story goes. Just a few, to kind of help verify, justify, or at least make sure that all the ducks were in a row in terms of a couple of loose components. This is true for a couple of the secondary, maybe tertiary characters that were highlighted in the trailer. You obviously know what they're going to be, but perhaps a little more involvement with them maybe would have made him a little more worthwhile. I think from talking to a couple of my friends, I understand the purpose of that, which is something of more of the dislike in terms of some of the political components into this movie. Very similar to how Peele does it. Peele knows how to blend a lot of comedy styles into it, and there's some political things that I think some people are going to like and some people are going to find maybe not needed to the movie. I'm kind of a little bit on the secondary component of it. There are just some elements and choices that he made in terms of it that I wouldn't have agreed with, or maybe not have used the characters more for. But hey, I gotta let the director do what the director's gonna do, and again, that's fine. The other thing that really comes in is that the story predictability. Some of my friends are surprised. I got it about halfway when they dropped something that was key, and most of that comes from that you can actually glimpse about 3 big twists depending on the trailer. If you're like me, you see the trailer, notice the details, then you got to be careful with this movie because there's some key scenes in it that give away what the final twist is, even though it's semi-predictable. So this is where going into the pacing kind of comes in. By having a slower pace and knowing what the end-all be-all is going to be, unless you are hoping it's going to defy it, there's enough leeway to give you kind of the surprise twist ending. So wanting to get there may be a factor that will take away from the enjoyment. Anyway, let's wrap this up. The movie does a fantastic job on so many levels. It's good storytelling, it's good means of acting to bring it to life, and it's a concept that's not often seen in a lot of horror movies, or at least done to this level. I think Peele is a very smart writer. I think Peele is very good at managing to find ways to bring tension without, post-traumatic stress disorder for you, but also at the same time managing to put some laughs in there because he is a comedian as well. It's a very well-balanced movie. One of the better horror movies I've seen in a long time. Again, I give him props for it. There's just some atmospheres that still need to be taken out of it. Some of that political component some people are going to love, especially in this very politically charged age, while others, not so much. So kind of go in there with a forewarning. If you've seen enough of the trailers and dug through it, you're going to be able to glimpse most of it without reading Wikipedia and figure out the twist. And of course, just kind of getting into the fact of that there's good suspense but not scares is just something to be warned about. My scores again are 8 in terms of the movie category, 7.5, maybe 7 at the lowest for movie overall. I thoroughly enjoyed it and hope you guys will too. Until then, this is Robbie K signing out. I have a early premiere on tomorrow on Saturday, so I'll be looking forward to seeing you then. Peace.